cheese as we know it is pretty great. You can use it for a variety of things, such as, pastas, sandwiches, fondues, charcuterie boards, cakes. The problem is it loses all of its utility when you're allergic to it. I actually used to eat cheese until, I stopped being able to breathe after I ate it. So, as a result, if I wanted cheese in my life at all, I was going to have to choose the vegan or plant-based alternatives. Something I should preface is plant-based alternatives are not cheese. They're just not. They're a beast all on their own, and you have to take them for what they are and not what you think they should be. As someone who wanted quality in my life, I tried many different versions and brands of these vegan products. On many occasions, I served as a guide to my friends who were making the vegan adjustment or were having health issues, so I wanted to share my findings in a video format so that I don't have to keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm going to be real frank about what I think of these brands and their products. We're going to talk about 6 brands today, and first, real quick, we're just going to run over the general look of them, their design, what their products are kind of overall. First is Dea. I find them to be pretentious, overpriced, low quality, and generally does everything wrong like the jack of all trades and master of none. Go Veggie is like the Goodwill of cheese alternative brands. They vary with the degrees of dietary issues, so they have like lactose or they have vegan, and there's like gluten-free in between, I think, maybe. And they've got some real winners amongst their assortment. Tofuti is like the aunt and uncle you don't know much about and are mostly absent, but they also seem to be everywhere. And I know that's weirdly specific, but I find it to be oddly accurate. Follow Your Heart, by far, is my favorite brand. Super wholesome branding, never disappointed, wouldn't be shocked if it was made of people, would still eat it, also very expensive. Earthgrown, also known as the Aldi brand. It's a favorite of mine. They're a wholesome company, from the outside at least. They do a little bit of everything, and everything they do just feels right, and it's very affordable to someone who has to have that in their life or is choosing to try and make a transition. Chow is just everything hipster but cheese. Before we go any further, there's something I want to touch on real quick, is the smell. Now, there are some people that are absolutely repulsed by the scent of cheese alternatives. Some so far as to gag or make retching sounds when they get the bag too close to their face, while others are more tolerant of the scent, and it's just kind of meh. So, when you begin to have these in your home, or you start heating them, or eating them amongst people who aren't used to this sort of thing, there may be faces made, and there may be butts removed from seats. Now, old cheeses have to be looked at both warm and cold, because it does in fact make a difference. I wanted to start with the sliced cheeses. Dea's sliced cheeses are the most manufactured, gritty, crumbly, awful chunks of oversaturated color, or lack thereof, that I've eaten. I've had their cheddar slices, their mozzarella slices, and their provolone slices. None of them are bendy. They break right in half. However, they do melt exceptionally well. I would never dare eat them cold because it's gonna be like eating straight soybeans. It's gross. It's gritty. It's like sandpaper. But when it's melted, it has a weird aftertaste and it smells terrible. But now you have melted cheese. I like to think of Tofuti's sliced cheese as like a dark horse because you wouldn't think such a behind the scenes brand would come up with sliced cheese that just worked. Well, it does cold. It works great cold. It's great for sandwiches or anything else you use cold cut cheese for. But don't melt it. Don't make grilled cheese. That it will become milly and its flavor will change in a So, as I kind of stated before, Follow Your Heart is the golden child here. Their sliced cheese, I've had their provolone and their American, and I think they might have a cheddar that I've had, and it peels like real cheese that, like, you know, there's a certain way pre-sliced cheese in a brick peels away from itself. It does that. It does exactly that. It doesn't rip apart. It doesn't get crumbly. It doesn't smell weird. It's just good cold and warm. It's perfect, but it's like $8 for 12 slices. Then there's Chow. I've had very little of Chow. I've had their sliced cheese, and that's about it. And I really don't see much more of Chow other than their sliced cheese out there. They're branded as doing lots of different cheeses, but all I ever see is the bricks, and their quality is similar to Follow Your Heart. It's very creamy. I would recommend them. They are on the more expensive side because they are good quality. But what the hell are you doing, Chow? So after sliced cheese comes shredded cheese. And unfortunately, Deo was my first experience with vegan and plant alternative cheeses to begin with. And I will say their cheddar shreds works great with cooking. I made a fall, summer, I made a squash risotto with the cheese, and it melted great. It tasted good. Fed it to the boyfriend. He didn't complain until later when we were married. Smell is not as big of a factor with Dea. It's just that overall they're just kind of crap and they're pricey. So Go Veggie has sliced cheese, and I have had only their Mexican blend, and that's because I've made lots of homemade crunch wraps, and they're perfect for homemade crunch wraps. They melt just right, they glue everything together. However, it takes quite a bit of effort to melt the cheese to get that perfect squish and stretch. Would I eat it cold? Absolutely not. That's probably going to be a trend amongst the shredded cheese. So we're back to the golden child. They're shredded cheese. It's fantastic. It does its job. It's just good for everything. If you don't have slices, use it for your sandwiches. Use it in your cooking. I still wouldn't eat it just as it is. I'd say when heated, it is one of the less offensive scents, along with Go Veggie. If you're, one of those people that makes 3 a.m. cheese tortillas. Earthgrown's really impressed me. I've recently noticed that they've released a cheddar shred along with their mozzarella shred. They both smell meh. They're not potent. They're not terrible. They're not great. Wouldn't eat them cold. However, the way they melt between the microwave and the oven or the cooktop, it's just It's perfect. It gives that perfect texture. It doesn't take too much to melt it. It doesn't just burn. I'd say they're the most comparable to a typical cheese experience alongside Follow Your Heart. So for our standard cheeses, the last one we have is cream cheese. And you'd think, how are you gonna mess up cream cheese? It's this creamy texture, and you just gotta add a little flavor. I mean, heck, most cream cheeses aren't plain. They got fruit in them. They've got chives in them. How are you going to mess up cream cheese? Well, Dea did it. They messed up cream cheese. It's gritty. It's got a horrible aftertaste. I've had the original. I've had strawberry. I've had chive. And they've all been gritty, horrible experiences that just ruin the bagel. It's over. Just don't eat Dea. Just don't. Go Veggies cream cheese is my second favorite, actually. It is a little on the watery, runny side, and there is definitely a coconut aftertaste, but it is the least forward-tasting cream cheese, so there's a lot you can do with it. And I think that actually adds to the alternative itself. So now you have this slightly coconutty, creamy base that you can add jams and jellies and fruits on top of, and I personally like to add a little butter underneath, and it really comes together as something really nice. And yes, it's not original cream cheese, but it's a nice experience. Tofuti has cream cheese, and I can't say much about it because it tastes like nothing. It is nothing on bread. It is nothing on muffins. It's nothing. Which gives you a lot of room to add things to it, maybe? But I only get it if there is literally no other option. And even then, I'm good. I might just not have cream cheese. Oh, however, because of its general lack of flavor, but its creamy consistency, it's great for cooking, such as adding to your mashed potatoes. Something to think about, yes, maybe? So my favorite cream cheese alternative that I've ever experienced was Earthgrown's, which they pulled, and it's just not on shelves anymore. And I deeply miss it. What I do remember about cream cheese, the original cream cheese, is that it had this ever so slight sourness to it. It had a tiny little bite, even if you got the flavored versions. And their cream cheese had that. And I remember taking my first bite of it after... Actually, I think that was the first cream cheese I had after not having cream cheese again. And I thought I was eating real cheese. And it was startling, and it was delicious, and it was a brief love affair. So as we kind of wrap up our discussion on cheese here, there are a spare couple of items through these brands that are notable for good and bad reasons. For example, Tofuti has sour cream, and boy howdy do they knock that out of the park. It's better than real sour cream. It's got the sourness, but it's so much creamier, and it's not watery and runny. It doesn't mold in like a day or two, and you can do all the same stuff to it that you would do with normal sour cream. It's delicious and it's wonderful, and I'd recommend it over real sour cream. I just would. It's just that good. So I've dogged on Dea quite a lot throughout the process of this discussion that we are having. They have done one thing right. They've done mac and cheese well. They have these pre-made, like, make your own mac and cheese kits. And on top of it, you can get the nacho cheese packets. And it's thick, and it gives you that nacho cheese fix, if that's what you're really driving for, with all the carbs. And it really hits a button if that's what you're going for. And it's not worth how expensive it is. They also make Parmesan, which is a good alternative to Parmesan. I can't say much about Parmesan. It's overpriced because it's Dea. Lastly, for Dea, they make cheesecakes, which I don't know why they call them cheesecakes, because there's nothing about it that even slightly begins to resemble what a cheesecake smells, feels, and tastes like. And on top of it, they're like this big for like $10, and they're just blah. They're just blah. If I'd say, at least for the cheesecakes, there's something to try once. And if you love it, you love it. That's great. Have it whenever you're going to have your hankering for cheesecake. But if you don't like it, just forget the brand exists and mentally set it on fire. Our last plant alternative on the docket is another wayside earth-grown product. It was their mac and cheese. I only got 4 boxes of it, and it was another hitting the nail on the head. It reminded me of those times that I was sitting in my grandma's kitchen and she was making me Kraft mac and cheese. And then you cut it with, more real cheese and a little bit of extra, your thicker milks or your sweeter milks. And I always liked peas in my macaroni and cheese, and it was that. It was Grandma's kitchen, and it's not there again. And God, I miss it. So those plant alternatives, my thoughts on it, and what you should be getting. I hope you've drawn your own conclusions throughout this discussion about plant alternatives and vegan foods. My clear favorites, obviously, are Follow Your Heart and Earthgrown. Follow Your Heart's going to be more expensive. Earthgrown is going to be a little harder to find, since all these, they're becoming more common. However, their stock is really inconsistent. So if you want something more consistent, you're probably going to end up with the dumpster fire that is Dea, or the nice Goodwill brand Go Veggie, which Go Veggie is great. Do that one. Don't buy Dea. And hey, if you like this, maybe subscribe, or hey, maybe you tell me that you want me to talk about milk and ice cream next. Remember to do your chores and drink your water. Bye.